Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairman. Ms. Johnson, in your written remarks, you said that the Penn Center has a steadfast devotion to free expression. In fact, I counted 16 times in your written testimony you used the terms free expression or free speech. I just want to know, 2 weeks ago when Senator Schumer stood on the Senate floor and said to a major American news outlet that they should not play video footage from January 6th, was that something that's consistent with a steadfast devotion to free expression?
I'm sorry, sir. When Senator Schumer
told Fox News, don't play video footage from January 6th, was that a commitment to steadfast devotion to free expression?
I think Senator, I cannot speak for Senator Schumer or what
I'm not asking you to speak for him. I'm asking you to comment on what he said.
If there is an issue of national security, sir, I'm not going to comment on what.
How about the very next day when this committee released a report where the Federal Trade Commission sent a letter to a private company, Twitter, and asked them, who are the journalists you're talking with, and named 4 journalists by name? Would that be consistent with a steadfast devotion to free expression?
Sir, PEN America consistently works to defend the rights of journalists, including their ability to do their job. That's all I will say about that.
The next day, 2 of those 4 journalists mentioned in the FTC's letter to Twitter testified in front of this committee, and Democrat members of Congress asked those 2 journalists who their sources were. Is that consistent with a steadfast devotion to free expression?
Sir, PEN America consistently works to ensure that journalists can do their job, and that means allowing for anonymous sources as appropriate.
Good for you. How about this? 2 days into the Biden administration, literally 2 days, January 23rd, 2021, Clark Humphrey, Executive Office of the Presidency, White House office, sends an email to Twitter where he says this: wanted to flag the below tweet, and I'm wondering if we can get moving on the process for having it removed ASAP. Would that be consistent with a steadfast devotion to free expression?
Sir, I don't have the content of the tweet, so I can't speak to that.
I'll give you the content. They cited a tweet from Robert F. Kennedy, that conservative Republican, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where he was raising some concerns about vaccines. And the White House, 2 days into this administration, said they wanted that tweet taken down. Would that be consistent with free expression?
I will say 2 things about that. One is that, not having seen this, and I appreciate you reading it to me. One is that we would like to err on the side of permitting content, so that because I think it's important to have content.
I'm with you.
Okay?
I'm with you. That's
and
why.
I think the other, sir, is that we would also want to ensure that if there is misinformation or disinformation being promulgated, that we're able to address it.
Well, that's when it gets scary. That's when it gets real scary. I'm surprised you said that after mentioning free expression 16 times in your written statement, that suddenly now, unless it's misinformation as defined by you, that is entirely contrary to what the First Amendment's about. How about this? National School Boards Association letter that was the catalyst for most of this, frankly all of this, I think, was sent on September 29, 2021. I just want to read the first sentence. America's public schools and education leaders are under immediate threat. The letter then goes on to say, the NSBA requests a joint expedited review by the Department of Justice. Such review should examine the use of the Patriot Act in regard to domestic terrorism. Do you agree with the NSBA letter sent on September 29, 2021?
Sir, we are not, PEN America has not made a position on that letter. I will just say I understand.
No, I'm just asking, well, how about those 2 sentences I just read? Do you agree with the tone of that in that letter? Do you agree with that?
I'll say this, it is really important that any member of a community is able to stand up before a school board and voice their opinion. It is equally important that a school board member is able to carry out this critical, important public service, sir, in a way that keeps our safety. That's really what I
well, you know who disagrees with it?
Who disagrees with me, sir?
All kinds of people, but the most important, I think, entity who disagrees with it is the School Boards Association themselves, because 23 days later, they rescinded it. 23 days later, they said this: we regret and apologize for the letter. There was no justification for the language included in the letter. So, I mean, the idea that the Attorney General still continues to defend his memorandum based solely on this, as Ms. Neely pointed out in her opening statement, I find alarming. And to our 3 witnesses, Ms. Justice, Mr. Langford, and Ms. Neely, thank you so much for what you did. To your point earlier, Ms. Neely, we are going to talk to these people. We talked to Ms. Garcia today. We had a transcribed interview with her. Mr. Slavin's coming in next week. We're trying to talk with Ms. Wall and a host of other folks who concocted this whole thing, as our report that we released 2 days ago points out, concocted this whole thing. And the key line in that report not from Republicans, not from Mr. Johnson, not from Republicans on the committee, but from a U.S. attorney, Democrat U.S. attorney in the Biden administration, when he said this appeared to be a manufactured crisis. It was all put together for politics, and that's what we all know. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Johnson, I'm interested in pursuing that a little bit. You know, the chairman titled this hearing, "Free Speech, the Biden Administration's Chilling of Parents' Fundamental Rights." And of course, talking about the Attorney General's memo, folks on the other side of the aisle have been interested in talking about what you describe as book bans and educational gag orders. I just wonder, and of course, you're free to put anything you want to in your testimony, but did you consider that the subject, the Attorney General's memo, well, let me ask you this way, did PEN America condemn the Attorney General's memo?
We did not put out a statement during the time of the memo, no, sir.
So, and you've said, you know, you were very carefully, and you're a lawyer, a First Amendment lawyer, and you know this stuff. You laid out earlier what the First Amendment doesn't protect if there's actual and incitement of imminent violence.
Yes, sir.
And so is it a matter of concern to you whether the Attorney General of the United States, the highest law enforcement officer, issued a memorandum for action in every judicial district in the country concerning activism relating to school boards? I mean, it matters a great deal, doesn't it? Whether there was a sufficient factual predicate of actual threats or incitement of violence, as opposed to that even rambunctious advocacy that you've made reference to.
I think it's critically important that people have a right to speak out, and I do believe that. We would oppose efforts to restrict protected speech, absolutely.
So why do you deem that subject unworthy of comment?
I can't speak to what.
Did you engage in a wide gamut of free expression issues, is what your testimony says. That's what you do. And here the highest law enforcement officer in the country did something that can only be described as chilling. And what it appeared to me when I went through every footnote in that NSAB letter that the Attorney General relied upon, I couldn't find. There were like maybe 2 across the country acts involving busting a door in one case. I didn't find, and a lot of these responses coming back from United States attorneys in all these meetings that they summoned said there weren't any. Then the local officers, when they got in touch with them, said, you guys are doing something you have no business doing. Is that not a matter of concern to you as an advocate for free expression?
I appreciate the question, sir, and I'm happy to go back and look at it. I cannot tell you at this moment why.
So it did, for whatever reason, it didn't arise to a level of significance for you. Not enough to talk about in your testimony anyway, right?
No, sir, I wouldn't put it that way. I would put it in the way that we are really focused on ensuring that people do have the right to access, and we have been focused, as you know, and as my testimony reflects, about this wave of censorship that's happening at the state and local level. It does not mean we don't care, sir.
All right.
But
How
I
about
appreciate
this
the question.
Have you read the Twitter files?
I'm sorry?
Have you read the Twitter files? Not familiar with that? You know about Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger and the others?
Okay, I'm sorry.
They've issued they describe the use of the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the Cyber Infrastructure and Security Agency, the Global Engagement Center at the State Department, the ODNI, the CIA, to act directly with social media platforms and through private so-called disinformation researchers. I noticed on PEN America's website, you guys talk a lot about reacting to disinformation. On the pretext of reacting to disinformation, they got with social media companies, they took down millions of social media posts. And then they used things like Hamilton 68 that purported to tie them to Russia. It was all BS. Is that not a matter of concern to you?
Sir, I can go back and take a look at what we've actually done.
I mean, that's extraordinary. That's what I'm saying. So, and I think what's interesting in this, where we are in this, the subcommittee on weaponization, which is not this committee, is that you took pains to say that your organization, it doesn't care about which side of the aisle it's on, that the free expression ought to be of concern to everybody. We're talking about, as one witness called it, the largest censorship exercise in the history of the United States government. And that wasn't the subject that you chose to talk about either. Are you Are you a partisan, or are you just interested in free expression on, across the political spectrum?
So we are a nonpartisan organization, and we have engaged in a lot of defense of people from both sides of the aisle, from our campus free speech to looking at protest rights. We are definitely engaged on this from a nonpartisan perspective. I do appreciate the question. I'm more than happy to take a look and respond for the record, but at this point, I just don't have the response on those particular, on the Twitter files right now.
I hope we can all get together, because I think they're really important issues, and they don't matter what your party is. And I hope we'll cover a lot of ground on those subjects. Mr. Chairman, my time's expired.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so every time I put out a video, you can know about it. It'll come up in your feed. Hit that like button if you liked it. And be positive. Peace.